So today we're going to be talking about how to automate basically anything using MCP AI agents. Now, if you're not sure what they are or you've heard about them, you're not sure how to use them, then I'm going to show you exactly how to set this up. And this is the easiest way that I know to set up MCP tools, right? So for example, you can see here inside this API request, and you can actually set up some of these for free. Then you can actually use these API requests to use an MCP tool, and then this AI agent just goes off and integrates with apps almost seamlessly. It's a lot easier than setting up NAN agents, for example, and it is really easy to just integrate this with other things, using like one-click scripts and prompts and that sort of thing. So we're going to get straight into it. Now, if you're wondering, okay, what on earth is an MCP AI agent? So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's like a universal plug that helps AI systems connect to different tools and data sources. Now, the thing to note here is if you're using, for example, NA10 or these other models, even make.com and that sort of thing, and you're just using the traditional way of linking it to different tools and apps, right? It gets really complex because you have this AI agent like this, and then the problem is, like, you're going to have one single app, but it's going to have to link to many different tools within the app, right? So, for example, let's say you're linking your AI agent over to Gmail. You're going to have one Gmail tool for drafting, one Gmail tool for checking messages, right? And then one Gmail tool for actually sending emails, right? It gets quite messy because then if you want to link multiple AI agents, you got to set up all these different connections within the same app. It doesn't make sense. Why would you have to set them up within one app? Whereas, for example, if you look at the example with Visual Studio Code, what we're doing here is we're using Perplexity's MCP, and then that MCP server sets up everything directly for us. So we don't need to, for example, link one Perplexity tool for searching, one Perplexity tool for gathering data, one Perplexity tool for different APIs, etc. It's all within this one platform. And it's really easy to install these as well. So I'll show you how to set up these with a one-click install. So it's a USB-C port, but it's for AI, right? And these AI agents can basically do all sorts of things. Now, the difference here is that this is really easy to set up, right? That's one of the biggest differences. Like with an MCP, AI agents can quickly link to many tools and you don't need any sort of special setup. You can actually just get your AI agent set up for you. I'll show you how to in a minute. And you get real-time updates. So the cool thing about this is, for example, if you go over to Claude, right? And you ask Claude to do a live search. So we ask it, okay, what is Gemma 3, mate? Because its data isn't very updated, right? It doesn't really know what the hell, it doesn't know what you're talking about, right? So Gemma 3 was actually released in 2025, but because Claude's data is only updated up to October 2024, it doesn't link to the internet, it can't connect to different tools, it doesn't have access to the latest data. Whereas, for example, if you set up an MCP server with like Perplexity or Search or whatever you want, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, then you can easily link these AI agents to real-time updates, right? They can connect to the internet, essentially. And also, this allows you to basically update. So, for example, if you set up an MCP server for Perplexity, and then Perplexity introduced like a new feature, or Gmail introduced a new feature, that is included inside the MCP server. So it's very different, right? This allows you to scale integrations faster, because imagine trying to scale something like this, right? If you have an AI agent workflow where you have to do this, and then you have to do it again with another AI agent, and then another one, right? All of a sudden, you got like maybe 9 different connections. Whereas with an MCP server, you have one agent that's connected to multiple MCPs, and you don't need other AI agents, right? You've just got one MCP agent that connects everything. Pretty simple. And then also the benefits are you get better performance, you get better stuff out of it. These MCP agents are updated by the server that hosts them, and it's really easy to set up. Okay. Now, this is something that was first introduced by Claude. So Claude actually is pretty new technology. Like this really came out and was released and introduced to the world by Claude back in November 2024. Like you can see, they basically said, today we're open sourcing modern context protocol, right? New standard for connecting AI assistants to the systems where data lives, including content repositories, business tools, etc. Right? And the goal with this is to basically produce more relevant responses, better responses as well. But let me show you how it works step by step and how to get started. Now, you can set up with Claude. It's technical though, and I want to make things as simple and as easy as possible for you, because if you watch all those YouTube tutorials on like how to set up MCP servers, it's really messy and confusing. and you have to like self-host and stuff like that. And then you have to get approved for self-hosting if you're using something like Elasio. And it can get quite messy, my friends. So instead, what we're going to do is create something really simple and easy. And that is using Visual Studio Code, right? So if you go over to Visual Studio Code, they actually have an MCP marketplace. And then you can ask your AI agent to go off and install those for you. And I'll show you a few different use cases and how you connect this to Google and to Claude and that sort of thing, right? So for example, if you want to get this set up, first thing you want to do is install Visual Studio Code. And guess what? That is completely free, my friends. You can just download it for Mac or you can download it for Windows or whatever you want. And once that's done, it's going to look something like this, right? So you're going to see something like this once you've installed that. Then from there, you're going to go over to extensions and you will type in Klein, like you can see over here. And Klein is really good because it has an MCP marketplace. So it's really easy to set up, much easier to set up than other things. For example, like if you try and set up MCP servers inside Windsurf, all these other IDs, it gets really messy and confusing. And it's not easy, even for someone like me who's using AI every single day. So once you've got Klein installed, and that is free as well to install, then you're going to go over to Klein, as you can see right here. And then inside your settings, you've got a choice here. Now, I would recommend you actually use Google Gemini because it's completely free, right? So if you want to use completely free APIs, then you can use Gemini. And that's usually one of the first questions I get asked is like, is this free? Is this not free? Whatever, right? Now, the other cool thing about Klein is like whenever you use these MCP servers or whenever you build stuff out of it, right? And I'll show you some of the coolest workflows later for MCP servers. Then you can insert custom instructions, which means that each time you build something and use these MCP servers, it's using your custom instructions, right? So for example, here, we've got CTA on every single response to link to our funnels. We have our brand colors. We have information on how to build websites, what we sell, how to respond to me, etc. Right? Even how to create website content, which means that we don't have to type that into the prompt every single time. We can just get Klein as an agent, custom instructed to set up these MCP servers using our process. Now, if you go to the advanced settings over here as well, you actually have some options here. So inside the advanced sessions, you actually get some options of, how you set up the MCP servers. So if you want to mess around with that, you can. Honestly, I don't really bother because it's just, I don't want to make my life more confusing or complicated than it needs to be, right? So once we've done that, we've set up the API, we've set up the custom instructions, we've got MCP enabled right here. And we've got Klein installed, which is free, and also Visual Studio Code, which is free. And also if you want the SOPs for this, all inside the AI Profit Boardroom, link in the comment description. So if you just want a step-by-step SOP for setting all this stuff up, you can get that inside the AI Profit Boardroom. But now what we're going to do is we're going to click on this block over here, which says MCP servers, right? Now, you can see the variety of MCP servers that you get here. Now, you know how I was talking about, for example, setting up AI agents? Let me show you what I'm talking about here. For example, if we go over to NA10, right? I'll show you an example. So if we sign into NA10 over here, and this is basically the old way, and even that was pretty recent, but this is the old way of setting up AI agents. So if we go to NA10, we'll log in, we'll have a look at an example workflow, right? And you've got this workflow where it's an NA10 agent, right? And it is still pretty good, but you see how you have to create like one tool for drafting emails, and then you have to add another tool if you want to send messages. So over here, you would change this to message, right? And then you have to set that up individually as well, right? So it gets quite messy. And then we have to set up another one if we want to link this to another tool. So for example, let's say we want to label stuff with Gmail. We have to click on add label over here, right? And then we have to set it up all over again, right? And so all of a sudden it's really inefficient because you've got a separate tool for creating a draft, sending messages, adding labels, whatever you want, right? And so if you want the whole functionality of Gmail, you can't connect to one single MCP server, right? Instead, what you have to do is create separate tools, and you might have to create like 10 of them to get the full functionality of one single MCP server. And so that's the difference here, is like you're just making everything way more efficient. So if we go over to Visual Studio Code over here, you can see, for example, we can connect to Olama, we can connect to, for example, Notion, so you can get all the functionality of Notion, Atlassian as well, so I think that'll be linked to Trello, if I'm not mistaken, Stripe, so you can actually link this directly to Stripe and create AI agents with that, and all this other cool stuff, right? So for example, let's scroll up here, we also have Perplexity, Spotify, Shopify, right? So if you're in e-commerce right now, and you're not using MCP servers for Shopify, you're crazy, my friend. You're crazy, because that's just going to help everything get easier, right? It's going to make everything so much easier. You can build awesome AI agents with it. And I'll show you an example of how these AI agents work in practice. All right. So once you've done that, then you can select which one you want to install. So if you just click on install over here, you can select install. You've got the AI agent that can install stuff for you. And the cool thing about this as well is, like, when you use something like Visual Studio Code, you are not using the terminal, right? So you don't have to worry about using the terminal and then setting up these commands, which can be really complicated, right? So if we go into terminal here, we have to go back and forth with the terminal. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes we have to set up complicated dependencies. For example, right, if you wanted to set up an MCP server with Visual Studio Code, what you're going to do is you're going to go to Client, then you go to MCP, type in Shopify, hit install, and boom shakalaka, you've got your MCP server ready to go, right? And I'll show you an example of me setting up live later today. Whereas, for example, if you had to install this through terminal, you're going to have to copy and paste that, go through all these steps right here. It's going to be really messy and time consuming, and you're probably going to end up spending like 2 hours messing around with it, right? No bueno. Instead, what we want to do is we want to go over to Visual Studio Code and then just click install, and boom, we're ready to go, right? Now, as an example of that, you can see, for example, I've got Complexity Research ready to go right here. So if I wanted to install this, what I can do is I can go to install, right? So we can click on install, and the task is set up the MCP server from this GitHub whilst adhering to these MCP server installation rules. And so we can now create an app that runs around Perplexity, right? And we can use Perplexity in our workflows. Really easy and simple to do. So we'll wait for that to load right now. And you can see that's beginning to start setting this up. So we shall proceed. All right. And also the cool thing about this is, you see how it's got this auto approve? This means it will just run and cycle through them step by step. So if we go over to Perplexity now, we need to grab an API key. All right. So if you want to grab an API key and you want to set up an MCP server for Perplexity, this is how you do it. So you go to settings, API key, and then we're just going to grab an API key in the background. Okay. So I've got this one. I will delete it after this video. Obviously, I'm not going to share it with the world, and hopefully you don't start using it straight away. In fact, I'm actually going to open this up in a different tab, and then I'll set this API key up separately. So I'll delete the old one, generate a new one, just to be safe here. All right. And then you would go back to Perplexity inside Visual Studio Code. It says, what is your API key? As you can see. So let me zoom in for you there. Oh, that's too zoomed in. We don't want that. So you see how it says, what is your API key? We can plug that in. Like you can see, that's going to plug in the API key. And now we're beginning to set this up. All right. And it's going to set up all the API keys directly in there. All right. Now, this doesn't always work perfectly. So we're just going to test this in a second to see how it goes. You see it said, I've set this up, blah, blah, blah. We'll hit approve. And you can see how it doesn't always work perfectly. So we're going to wait for this and we'll keep going and just see how it goes. So you can see, like, it doesn't always work perfectly first time round. We just have to wait for that to load. And also, if you wanted to install this on a fresh install, for example, let's say we want to just create a completely new folder and file using this. So if we go to, for example, Perplexity MCP example is a new folder, click create, we can open up that new folder as a new section inside client, go back to client, go back to MCP server, type in Perplexity, install that bad boy, and then we can start running this step by step. Make sure we've got that open, and we can start running with it. Now, we'll X off that. You do get a lot of pop-ups inside client, so it gets a bit messy sometimes. We'll run that. Keep going now. And then you just keep running the commands until it finally gets done. Now, it doesn't always work perfectly, so we just have to keep going. But if you want to see an example of me setting up earlier today, I'll show you that in a second. So, for example, let's X off this, X off that. And then we'll go back to our files over here, view the history, like you can see. And then if we go back over here, you can see an example of it working step by step here, right? So you can see that we did have to go back and forth with it, but basically we said do this, then this, and we're good to go on that. right? And again, if you want to set this up on a new folder, go to new window, open up a new folder, and then go from there. So it's super useful. And then, for example, now we've got this Perplexity MCP server that can, for example, do searches for it. We asked it, what is Gemma 3? That's a query over here. And then if we keep scrolling down, it did fail a couple of times. Just be wary of that. But then it's okay. Here's the answer. And then we got it nicely formatted right here. So it actually comes back with a really nice format for the actual post as well. You can also just go directly inside the chat here and ask it to install it directly. That's another method. And then you can see here how it is setting up the MCP settings. So we'll wait for that to load. And then if you see any boxes like auto approve, usually I just click on auto approve so it starts running here. So let's go back to that previous installation here. And then you can install whatever you want. Now let's have a look here. So now you can see the MCP server working over here. So this is it. Happy days. So if, for example, ask the example question, what is capital France? We got the response from the MCP server. It says the GitHub MCP server is now working. I'll present the result to the user. And then you've got this working right here. So pretty good stuff. Let's see, for example, as well, you've got those custom instructions. So any answers you create there. And now what you can do as well is like you could create a website or an app based on that information. So you can connect this to Perplexity or the internet, you can connect it to Shopify, and then you can get responses. Like, for example, you could create an AI agent where, you know, if someone asks you for an invoice and you've connected to the MCP server from Stripe, using Stripe, that could send the customer the invoice directly, or we could send emails directly or whatever. This can also link to a lot of Google products, which is super useful. So if we type in Google over here, you've got Google Calendar, you've got Google Drive, Google Maps, etc. So it's pretty powerful for that stuff. And you can see this is confirmed to be working. Let's test something else out now. So we're going to say, okay, what is an MCP server? Explain it at third grade level, plus why it's so different versus everything else. So we'll plug that in, hit approve, and there you go. So for example, we've now got the MCP server, and it says an MCP server is like a magical plug that lets your favorite robot toy, like an AI assistant, connect to any gadget or tool in your house, right? Here's how it works. Here's why it's special. And then here's how it's going. The other thing as well, like you don't have to plug in the API key each time. So once the MCP server is deployed, like you can see on this particular chat with client, then we can start building projects out of it, right? So for example, if we now said, create a website about MCP servers, sleek, modern design, it's going to use the information from Perplexity to start coding that out, right? So you can see it's taken the information from the API request and their MCP server, and it's going to start building out that website like you can see right here. And then once that's ready, we can also use client to deploy that as well, which is pretty cool. So you can see how powerful and easy it is and how much easier this is versus NA10, right? NA10 is super complicated if you're building out those MCP servers. And now if we click on run new changes, that's going to open it up. Obviously, the design is not that nice. We haven't prompted it for that. We're not optimizing for that. We're just optimizing for taking the information and then plugging it into our AI agent. So that's one of the best ways to really set this up. You know exactly how to run MCP servers, how they work, why they're different, etc., and how to build them using Google, right? So inside the settings here, you can use Google Gemini. You've got your Google Gemini key right there. If you want to get a Gemini key, by the way, then you just go to aistudio.google.com, get an API key, and you can plug that right in. The other option that you have is that you can switch to OpenRouter, and then with OpenRouter, you can select one of the API keys. So for example, if we delete this, and then we type in, for example, Google, we have all these different APIs, including Gemma 3, right? So Gemma 3 is available there. This is a much more flexible option because you can switch between Claude and then Google, and then, you know, you can use lots of different APIs. And also a lot of the APIs on OpenRouter are free. So for example, if you type in free, you can set up MCP servers using all of these free APIs and then get information directly that way. Now, some people are asking, okay, how do you set up NA10 integrations with MCP servers? How do you set up a client tool with MCPs? This is something that I'm working on, but it requires local hosting, right? So you can't just, you basically have to set up local hosting with NA10 or self-hosting, and then you can start allowing community nodes to install MCP servers, right? So if you want to install MCP servers on NA10, you have to install it and self-host it locally or online, right? So I'm actually currently working on that with something called Elastio. So you can set this up. I'm actually just waiting for my account to be approved, and then you can set up a one-click install using Elastio, right? So if you want to set up an NA10 agent with community nodes and MCP servers, I'll do a video on it once I'm approved on NA10. But you can see here it says you're attempting to deploy an NA10 service. To resume development, click here. Then we'll click there. And if you want to set this up, then you just click on NA10, hit select. Then from there, you can select your server. So let's say, for example, going with Asia, we can create this, like you can see, create the service, deploy the service. Looks like my account might have been approved already, actually. And then we can start deploying those with NA10. All right. So we have to wait for that to be deployed. I think this is up and running now. Let's have a look here. Yeah, you can see it's still being deployed. But once this is deployed, I'll create a new video on NA10 and MCP servers and how to set that up. And yeah, then from there, you would just go to your settings, set up community nodes, and you're good to go. But just bear in mind, like, it's going to take a little bit of time to get approved on SEO, and then it's going to take a bit of time for it to get deployed on SEO. But yeah, that's one of the best ways to do it. But you can set up a Google MCP server inside NA10 and use those agents to set that up as well directly. For Google MCP AI agents, how to set them up, how to build stuff with it, how to connect it for free, you know, how to connect this with Perplexity, how to browse the MCP market server, and also how to set up all this stuff in really quickly. Like, it's free to do, it's easy to use, doesn't take a long time, and it doesn't require any technical setup if you use this method right here. So thanks so much for watching. If you want the full SOP and step-by-step instructions for setting up MCP servers using Klein and Google agents, feel free to get that link in the comments and description to the AI Profit Boardroom. If you sign up now, you can lock in your legacy price, and prices are going up end of the month. So if you sign up now, you're going to save money, you'll lock in your price, you won't get charged extra in the future, and you'll save a lot of money along the way. And this community is basically all about saving money, saving time, making money with AI to scale your business. Got all my best workflows for email, content automation, social media, etc., AI agents, SEO automation, and Q&A call recordings. Along with that, inside the SOP section here, you're going to find the whole SOP on how to set up MCP servers using Klein and free Google AI agents. Also, if you ever get stuck, you can ask 473 members inside the AI Profit Boardroom community for any questions that you have. And additionally, if you want to jump on weekly Q&As with us, feel free to jump on here. There's actually one happening tomorrow, so if you sign up now, you'll be able to lock in your schedule for the Q&A, and then from there, jump on, ask any questions you have. And if you want to get a free one-to-one SEO strategy session that shows you how we take websites from 0 to 145,000 visits this month and generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales on autopilot, feel free to get that. On this link building acceleration session, you'll get a free SEO domination plan. So you get a custom tailored link building plan so you can generate more lead sales and profits from your website. You'll discover the secrets of SEO link building, answer any questions one-to-one. You'll learn the best link building strategy for your website, plus how to quickly outrank your competitors with link building based on what's working for us and our happy clients, like you can see right here. Feel free to get that link in the comments and the description.